After 11 years of marriage, my husband asked for a divorce so he could start a new life with his mistress. I didn't cry, didn't beg. I simply pulled back all my support and began to take everything back. I'm Sarah, and this is my story. If it were you, after 11 years of being together, and the person you loved turned their back to start over with someone else, how would you react? Leave a comment below. And don't forget to follow the channel, because stories like this, they never really end at the final goodbye. The sky that day was a clear blue, like a broken promise, with soft golden sunlight stretching across the bustling streets, and a light breeze brushing past, making my hair fly into my eyes and blur my vision. Michael Reed, the man who once meant the world to me, reached out to fix my hair, his fingers grazing it unconsciously, as if 10 years of marriage were still etched into every gesture. We stepped into the lawyer's office, where the scent of polished wood and old paper mixed into an atmosphere so formal it felt suffocating. I walked ahead, my silver gray silk dress hugging my body like a fragile layer of armor, just barely shielding a heart that had already cracked. Michael followed, his shiny leather shoes tapping out a steady rhythm on the hardwood floor, but his eyes never met mine. The lawyer, a middle-aged man with silver-rimmed glasses, looked up from his desk. He smiled, but it froze slightly when he noticed how close Michael stood next to me, as if we were still just a normal couple. He nodded slightly and gestured to the two leather chairs. "Please, have a seat," he said, polite but with a probing gaze. I sat down, took a deep breath, and said, "We're here to file for divorce." The lawyer nodded, his voice calm and low. "I'll need a specific reason to finalize the process." Michael opened his mouth, then closed it again, like the words were stuck somewhere deep in his throat. I leaned forward, looked the lawyer in the eye, and said, softly but firmly, "We have irreconcilable differences." The words were gentle, but sharp, like a clean cut. Everyone in the room knew it was just a thin veil. The truth, cold and razor-edged, was elsewhere, in a little cafe beneath Michael's office building, where a girl with a soft smile and a high ponytail had walked into his life. He picked her up every day, stayed by her side when she was sick, and at her school's talent show, he stood there, holding a bouquet of fiery red roses, gifting her a sparkling designer dress, proudly sponsoring the event just because she had one dance performance. He had become her guardian angel. And as for why I agreed to the divorce, that part's even simpler. I don't keep what's already been touched by someone else. Not out of pride, but because I know my worth. Trash, no matter how much it once glittered, is still just trash. The lawyer, his silver-rimmed glasses slipping down his nose, flipped through the stack of papers, his eyes pausing at the number. 11 years. The time we had once fit together like two perfect puzzle pieces. He cleared his throat, his voice warm but laced with gentle persuasion, like an old father trying to hold something together. "Don't rush this. Think of the good years, the closeness, all the beautiful memories. Maybe there's still room to reconsider. I'm busy. Please make it quick," Michael's cold voice cut through. The lawyer sighed, nodded reluctantly, and the process suddenly sped up. Half an hour later, it was done. We, Michael Reed and I, had officially finalized our divorce. Michael stood up first. He looked at me, his eyes unreadable, then softly said, almost a whisper, "Sarah, do you need me to drive you anywhere?" I hadn't even shaken my head before he walked quickly out of the office. I followed, the breeze from the window sweeping my hair into my face again, and by the time I reached the parking lot, his familiar silver car was already pulled up in front of me. I instinctively reached out to open the passenger door, as I had for the past 10 years, but in a flash, I remembered. We were no longer husband and wife. His eyes met mine, complicated more than ever, but I calmly closed the passenger door, walked around, and got into the back seat like a stranger. The car rolled forward, merging into the busy traffic. Even from the back, through the rearview mirror, I could clearly see Michael's face. His lips curled slightly, his eyes shimmering with a strange kind of joy, like he was lost in a sweet memory. I cleared my throat. Can you turn the heat up? I'm allergic to pollen. Cold weather makes it worse. He stayed silent, didn't touch the AC, just reached into the glove box and handed a pack of tissues backward without turning around. We grew up together, dated for 4 years, married for 7. He knew full well I wasn't allergic to pollen. Wife? He said softly, his voice warm, like old times, as if nothing had changed. I cut him off, voice sharp. Michael, please refer to me as Miss Thompson. Or Sarah, he nodded through the mirror, though his eyes lingered on me for a moment. All right, Sarah. I'll tell both sides of the family about the divorce. Michael always liked taking care of anything that involved me. This time was no different. It was like he still wanted to protect me, even after betraying me. But he wasn't always like that. When we were little, Michael was skinny, timid, flinching whenever strangers got close. Me? I was Sarah Thompson, outgoing, bold, always ready to stand up for my friends like a scrappy little kid with tiny fists and oversized courage. His mom used to pack all kinds of snacks and fruit for me, so I took it upon myself to keep an eye on him, a joyful kind of duty. I remember clearly, back then, I climbed up to the school's loudspeaker, my little voice boldly announcing, Michael Reed is under the protection of Sarah Thompson. Thanks to that, he made it through preschool in peace, slowly growing into the popular guy in middle and high school. Tall, confident, with a smile that melted every girl's heart. Back then, I just saw him as a close friend, but he clung to me, begged me to tutor him in math, insisted I apply to the same university. Eventually, I did get in. With him. He became the star of the campus, and also the wall that blocked every guy from getting near me. With him around, no matter how friendly, pretty, or free-spirited I was, not a single guy dared come close, let alone confess. On graduation day, Michael took me to the school park. With help from student council friends, he lit up a sky of LED stars just for me under the moonlight. He held my hand, palms sweaty, voice trembling, but sincere. Sarah, marry me. I swear on my life, I'll always treat you well. Back then, I didn't hesitate for a second. My heart pounded, and I said yes. But now, sitting in his speeding car, I looked straight ahead and said coldly, Michael, that's my business. I'll handle it myself. My tone was overly formal, distant, and it made him frown instinctively, his brows twitching like a pin had pricked him. The car fell into silence, the air heavy like lead, until he let out a quiet, dry laugh and rasped, Sarah, how do you plan to explain this to our families? I didn't answer. He chuckled again, the sound echoing in the tight space. Don't tell me you're backing out now. That was when I finally looked up from my phone, stared directly into the rearview mirror, my voice razor sharp. Just focus on driving. I already told you. I'll handle it. I wasn't about to die in a car crash with my ex-husband on my first day back to single life. That thought flickered through me like a waking. 2 months ago, Michael called and told me he had forgotten a very important document. I brought the file and rushed to drive to his office. On the highway, loud honking blared all around as a speeding truck suddenly braked hard, then tipped over, crushing toward my car with a deafening screech of metal. I survived, barely, but my left leg took the full impact. The bones shattered into pieces, pain searing through me to the marrow, blood seeping from the wound. I lay there, surrounded by shards of glass glittering under the sun, panic and agony crashing over me, tears pouring down as I shakily dialed Michael's number again and again, the endless ringing sounding like a cruel refusal. His phone was off the entire time. I cried, my voice breaking through the speaker. Michael, please, help me. But there was no response. only the distant wails of an ambulance drawing closer, and the crushing weight of loneliness ripping through me. It wasn't until much later that I found out, because of one silly comment from Madison. I've never seen French pigeons before. Michael had bought plane tickets to Paris, spending 2 full weeks strolling hand in hand with her under the Eiffel Tower, while I lay alone in the hospital, writhing in pain. Afraid of worrying my parents, I didn't tell them anything. In the end, it was my best friend, Rachel Brooks, who stayed by my side, holding my hand through surgery, wiping sweat from my face during rehab. Her voice was soft. "Sarah, you're strong. I'm right here." It was then, lying in that hospital bed, that I decided I no longer needed this useless man. He wasn't worth a single second of my life. The day I came home after finalizing the divorce, I cooked a simple lunch, sat down to eat alone, the food tasteless on my tongue because the pain was still lingering. After eating and cleaning up, my phone chimed. Rachel had texted, "Sarah, you're not even officially divorced yet, and that jerk is already taking that woman out to celebrate. Shameless!" Attached was a photo. Michael sitting in a romantic couples restaurant, candlelight glinting off wine glasses, his hand caressing Madison's, her smile glowing. It was the same restaurant I once texted him about, asking to go. He'd turned me down, claiming he was too busy. A wave of nausea hit the back of my throat. Suddenly, a thought lit up in my mind. The next morning, I got up early and drove to the hospital. After reviewing my blood test, the doctor smiled warmly. "Congratulations, Ms. Sarah. According to the results, you're pregnant." I stood in silence, the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears, my hands crumpling the paper tightly. "I'd like to schedule a procedure," I said softly but firmly. "Can you help me?" In the early years of our marriage, Michael clung to me daily, his voice sweet. "Sarah, let's have a baby." We both longed for a child, but despite being healthy, I never got pregnant. And now, right as we were about to divorce, a baby appeared. Terrible timing, a cruel joke from fate. As I stepped out of the OB/GYN clinic, the sharp scent of disinfectant hitting my nose, I saw Michael and his new lover standing at the entrance. He had his arm around her, eyes full of concern. I clenched my purse, my nails digging into my skin. Our divorce wasn't even finalized, and Madison was already pregnant? The moment she saw me, Madison instinctively hid behind him, her tiny body trembling like she thought I might attack her. Michael, seeing the look on my face, probably assumed I'd followed them. His brow furrowed, his voice accusing. "What are you doing here, Sarah?" Before I could respond, he kept going, voice full of blame. "Sarah, we should handle the divorce civilly. Madison's not feeling well, and you showing up like this scared her." That confirmed it. She was pregnant, and he was protecting her like some fragile treasure. I let out a cold laugh, my tone ice. "Look closely. I was here first. And this is a gynecology clinic. Your woman's pregnant, isn't she? Michael, don't forget, we're still legally married." With that, I turned to leave, my footsteps heavy on the polished floor, when I heard a voice call my name from behind, deep and familiar. "Sarah!" I turned to see a man in a white coat walking straight toward me, a gentle smile on his face. At that moment, Michael's expression hardened, sharp as a blade. He stepped forward, voice tight. "Who is he? How do you two know each other?" The man, Dr. Nathan Cole, ignored Michael completely and walked up to me, asking gently, "How's your leg? Is the rehab going well?" I smiled, my voice warmer than usual. "Thanks to you, Dr. Nathan, I can almost walk normally now." Suddenly, Michael grabbed my shoulder, his grip tightening painfully. "Rehab? It was just a scratch. Why would you need physical therapy?" In his mind, thanks to what his secretary told him, I'd only suffered a minor injury. He had no idea the bone was crushed, that I'd been hospitalized for weeks. If he had paid attention to how long I was in the hospital, or even just noticed my limp, he would have known it was more than a scratch. But ever since I got hurt, he'd been too busy working or being sweet with Madison to care. "My leg is none of your business," I said coldly. shaking off his hand. His face darkened, rage flashing in his eyes. Then, out of nowhere, Madison burst into tears, sobbing, "Sarah, I'm really sorry. I told Michael to treasure you, but everything ended up like this. It's my fault. If you want to hurt me, I'll take it." She cried so hard her small body shook, flipping the whole situation so I looked like the aggressor. A flawless performance, her sobs echoing down the hospital corridor. Facing her tearful act, I replied flatly, voice even. 1. I don't care about your drama. 2. You can only fool Michael. 3. Your acting is awful, seeing that I wasn't taking the bait, that I didn't explode like she expected. Madison froze, then suddenly clutched her belly, tears spilling again as she looked at Michael. Michael, our baby. His eyes filled with pity. He slowly pulled her into his arms, gently stroking her back, wiping her tears, then turned to scold me. Voice sharp. "Sarah, we're still in the cooling period before finalizing the divorce. You know me. Don't make a scene. If you push it, you're the one who'll lose." After they walked away, their footsteps fading down the hall, Dr. Nathan came closer, worried. "Sarah, are you okay?" That's the thing about people. When you're holding everything in alone, nothing breaks you. But the second someone shows kindness, all the pain comes rushing up like a storm. Tears rolled down my cheeks. "Nathan, can you help me with something?" I hadn't even said what, and he nodded right away, voice firm. "Of course, Sarah." With his help, I quietly went through with the procedure that day. The icy sting of anesthesia, the pain in both body and soul, wrapped around me like a nightmare. As they wheeled me out of the operating room, my body weak, my eyes blurry from exhaustion, I thought I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure passing down the hallway, but I was too tired to care anymore. After that day, I cut all contact with Michael. No calls, no texts, complete silence, just like how I once clung to him. A week later, I was in the dressing room getting ready to go out when I heard the door open, followed by giggles and stumbling footsteps. Michael, completely drunk, was dragging Madison into the bedroom, the sharp smell of alcohol mixing with her sugary perfume. I stepped out, the dim light casting across their faces. Michael froze, and Madison flinched. I said, voice ice cold, "Move aside." I have somewhere to be. The air turned thick, heavy like the moment before a storm. Michael released Madison, his eyes confused as he whispered, "Madison, wait for me outside." She gave me a hateful glare, but obediently left the room. Michael stepped toward me, arms outstretched, trapping me between him and the wardrobe, his breath reeking of liquor. "Sarah, you're dressed like that late at night. Off to meet some guy? Guess the thing I didn't want is still worth fighting over." Dressed like that. Just a button-up shirt and skirt. Nothing different from any girl on the street. The thing I didn't want. The words stabbed like a blade. Since when had he become this vile? I once loved him so blindly, I couldn't see this ugliness. I pushed him, but he didn't budge. Anger surged up. I slapped him hard across the face, the sound echoing, "How I dress is none of your business." "And that's how you talk about something you threw away." While he stood stunned, I shoved past him and walked straight out. Downstairs in the living room, I ran into Madison, holding a glass of water. She looked up at me and smirked. "All dressed up like that, Sarah? You've got a date, huh?" "Didn't think you—" The implication was disgusting. I snatched the warm glass of water from her hand and threw it straight at her, liquid splashing everywhere. "If that mouth keeps running, it won't just be water next time." My phone rang. I smiled as I answered, cheerful, "I'm on my way." I walked out. Michael followed close behind, face cold, watching me slide into Daniel Hayes's silver car and drive off without once looking back. Daniel, my best friend from college, glanced over at me, his voice low. "Sarah, are you really doing this?" His eyes filled with quiet pain. I looked straight ahead. "You know me. Once I decide, I don't change my mind. Daniel, will you help me?" He bowed his head with a quiet smile, hands gripping the wheel, eyes focused on the road. Sarah, you know I've always got your back. I'll help. The car stopped in front of the bar. I stepped into the private lounge, the atmosphere buzzing, laughter echoing. Sarah, why so late? Someone shouted. You're the last to arrive. Drink up. I smiled, took the glass of red wine, its fragrance rich, and sat among old friends. The same circle that had helped Michael's company take off. Once the room settled, I spoke up. Michael and I are divorced. The room fell silent, just the music lingering. Once upon a time, someone loved you for so long. Someone quickly shut it off. A friend asked, What happened? You two were together for so long. I said casually, He cheated. We went to the lawyers last week. That woman's pregnant outrage broke out across the table, some cursing, some furious, but I no longer cared. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to see how Michael would live without me. Junior year of college, Michael and his roommates built a small game that caught a company's interest. Too cocky, they declined the offer and started their own company. At first, they just focused on developing the game, thinking everything would fall into place. But nearing completion, the problems piled up. Promotion, platform integration, contract negotiations. Michael, a hardcore coder, was lost. He didn't know how to pitch to partners. I couldn't bear to watch him struggle and said, You handle the game, I'll handle the rest. He brushed me off. Sarah, I got this. You just sit tight and wait to be a rich man's wife. But when the company was on the verge of collapse, he came begging. I said yes. Using my network and outgoing nature, I got his game onto key platforms. The company took off. A year later, we were married. He became the rising star of the internet. I continued handling PR, partnerships, media, and when I helped him land his first major deal, he gave me 1/6 of the company shares. Now, standing in the lounge with my wine glinting under the light, I said, Michael's company grew because of our network. Starting today, pull back, no more support. They all nodded. They'd helped him out of respect for me. The first thing I did was sell all my shares before my friends pulled out too. Any later, and the price would drop. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted him to face the truth. Without me, he was nothing but an average man who once threw away the woman who made him. The night the news about the share sale went public, I got a call from Michael. His furious screaming burst through the speaker, like I'd just set fire to his entire world. Sarah! How dare you sell your shares without telling me first? I tilted my head, eyes glancing at my freshly done nails, and replied casually, like I was commenting on the weather. I don't even want to keep you, let alone your company's shares. My calm words cut straight through his rage. On the other end, I heard his ragged breathing. Michael was so furious he could barely form a sentence, his voice shaking like a snapped guitar string. You! But he couldn't do anything, just the crackling sound of helplessness. After a moment, his voice dropped, hoarse and almost pleading. If you want to sell, I won't stop you. Just name your price. I'll buy them back. I smirked, my fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. Wow, Michael, how generous of you. I'm not greedy. Just go by market value. But that's only for the shares. As for marital assets, we go by the agreement. Savings, house, car. I'm taking 60%. There was a 2-second pause on the line, like he was swallowing the shock. I pictured his face, eyebrows tightly furrowed, lips pressed thin, hand probably clenched around the phone. Then he spoke, tense. I don't have that kind of cash right now. How about this? You give me back the shares, and you get all the marital assets. I paused for a beat, fingers still, calculating quickly in my head, but then shook my head, my voice sharp. No. Your assets aren't even enough to cover the value of the shares I'm holding. Plus, you've spent quite a lot on your mistress. I'm well within my rights to demand that back. Sarah, don't take this too far. I'm warning you, he growled. but I could hear the panic underneath. I let out a quiet laugh, the sound echoing through the silent room. I'd suggest you come up with a better offer. Otherwise, I'll sell to someone else. One of your competitors might be interested. Silence, then a heavy sigh, and his reluctant voice. Fine. In addition to all the marital assets, I'll transfer over the 3 downtown Chicago apartments I bought before the marriage. Is that enough? I let out a soft chuckle, placing the phone down on the table, eyes glinting under the warm light. Thanks then. I'll stop by the office tomorrow for the contract signing. 2 weeks later, early that morning, I had just stepped into the house when I saw a figure sitting on the sofa, still as a statue in the dim light. My heart pounded until I recognized the familiar, furious eyes of Michael Reed staring at me. He sat there in a wrinkled white shirt, looking like he hadn't slept all night. His jaw clenched, eyes blazing, voice hoarse as he shouted like the whole world had turned on him. Sarah, what did you do to Madison? His yell rang sharp through the room. I stood still, my eyes cold as they swept over him. What did I do? And even if I did something, do you really think you have the right to question me like that? The words were calm, but they hit like a slap, making his face twist even more, eyebrows knit tight, lips trembling like he wanted to say something but couldn't. He took a deep breath, lowering his voice, but it still came out harsh, like he was interrogating a suspect. Where were you last night? I gave him a tired glance, looking at him like he was a stranger. Whether I come home or not, what does that have to do with you? I turned and walked toward the bedroom, the hem of my silk dress gliding across the floor, but his voice rang out behind me, cold and final, like a warning. Sarah, I'm telling you for the last time. Tell your friend to stop bothering Madison. I won't tolerate this anymore. I stopped, turned around, eyes locked on his. I instantly understood. He meant Rachel, my close friend, a well-known barista. A few days ago, furious on my behalf, Rachel had gone to the cafe where Madison worked. Right in front of the crowd, customers and staff, she asked specifically for a coffee made by Madison. After one sip, she started criticizing it. Grind was off, temperature wrong, poor technique. All of it. Madison ended up running out in tears. I gave a thin smile, looking at Michael's angry face. She was just doing her job. Do we need your permission for that now? You're way too sensitive. Without letting him answer, I continued. I have my limits too, Michael. This apartment is my personal property. At 3 p.m. today, I'm changing the locks. You need to pack your things and be out before then. If you're not done in time, I'll have someone throw out your stuff. And trust me, you don't want to know where it'll end up. With that, I turned around and went into the bedroom, the door slamming shut behind me. When I came back out, the apartment was empty. Michael had left, the faint scent of alcohol lingering like a trace of his anger. The next day, Rachel excitedly mentioned that next week was our alumni meetup, but unfortunately, I already had a business dinner that same evening. When I told her the venue, she suggested we hold the meetup there. After she swore Michael wouldn't be coming, I agreed to drop by for a bit. I didn't expect that the moment I opened the door, I'd run straight into them. Madison, clinging to Michael's arm, smiling brightly like a newly crowned queen, as if she'd already taken my place. Michael, in a sharp suit, was chatting and laughing with old professors like he was showing off a trophy. Back in college, we were the golden couple, perfect match, married right after graduation, the talk of the campus. Now he brought his mistress to the reunion, parading her in front of our old friends like a public declaration that I'd been replaced. The room grew tense, faces stiff, everyone avoiding eye contact with them. An older professor, hair fully gray, came straight to me the moment he saw me, his voice warm but concerned. Sarah, what happened between you two? I smiled gently. Michael cheated. That girl is the one he's been seeing. I found out, so I filed for divorce. We're just waiting for the paperwork now. The words dropped like a slow-burning bomb. Silence filled the room, broken only by the soft clink of a glass touching the table. The group that had been talking with Michael and Madison immediately turned away, eyes cold, a few shaking their heads. The divorce wasn't my fault, and I wasn't afraid to let the world know the truth. Michael turned to look at me. He hadn't expected I'd say it out loud. I just gave him a slight nod and turned to continue my conversation with the others. The reunion party carried on cheerfully, but it couldn't shake off the cold stares directed at Michael and Madison. I glanced at my watch. The silver hand swept past the 9, then turned to the elderly professor and politely said I had to leave for another event. He nodded, his eyes full of quiet regret, as if he wanted to say something but only gave my shoulder a gentle pat. As I stepped outside, the breeze rushed past, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers, when I felt a hand grab my arm. I turned, locking eyes with Michael. His eyes bloodshot, brows furrowed, lips pressed tight as if he was holding back a storm. His voice came out low but sharp, almost like a snarl. "Did you do something to mess with the company?" The accusation dropped like a brick, as if I were the one who'd set fire to his entire world. Looked like my friends had started moving. I tilted my head, my eyes sweeping over him. "What does your company have to do with me?" "I sold all my shares. I've stepped away from every business-related matter. What else do you want to blame me for?" He froze, the hand gripping my arm suspended midair, clearly not expecting me to be so completely detached. Panic flickered in his eyes. I gave a slight flick of my wrist, freeing myself from his grasp, then added, "I have other things to do. Tomorrow's the court hearing. Don't be late." I didn't wait for a reply. I turned and walked toward the other private room. Wasting time arguing with him wasn't worth it. Making money mattered more. As the door opened, I stepped into a room glowing with warm lights and familiar faces, the scent of wine and appetizers floating through the air. Daniel Hayes, dressed in a deep navy suit, stood the moment he saw me, his smile bright like sunlight on a winter's day. "Sarah, this seat's for you. Come sit here." He pulled out the chair with gentle care, then lowered his voice, concern in his eyes. "You're late. Go on, eat something." I smiled, sat down, took the wineglass in my hand, the scent of red wine soothing the tired weight in my chest. Daniel leaned in and whispered, "You okay?" "You look a little worn out." I shook my head slightly, voice soft. "Just ran into a few old things?" Nothing serious. Daniel and I had known each other for years, since high school, when Michael and I were still in 10th grade, and he was already a senior. Tall, handsome, and brilliant, he was the talk of the school. Rumor had it he got an early college offer by 11th grade, and me, always the outgoing one, had wanted to get to know this school legend from the start. One time, during PE, a classmate stepped on my heel, and I fell flat on the court, dust covering my uniform skirt. Daniel, who was helping supervise, rushed over, eyes full of concern. "You okay?" He walked me to the nurse's office and carefully wrapped my scraped knee, and I used the chance to ask for his number. From then on, whenever we passed each other in the hallways, I'd wave, pulling him into conversations about everything, from math homework to weekend basketball games. Thanks to him, I joined the student council and worked on the publicity team. I was good at drawing and designed the posters, and Daniel, as team lead, always stood behind me. We grew close during the days prepping for the school sports festival, discussing poster layouts, chatting about rock music and future dreams. Being around him felt natural, never forced. Even after Daniel graduated and went to college, we stayed in touch, texting, sharing bits of daily life. Unlike Michael, Daniel was quiet, always letting me start the conversation. If I didn't, he could go 2 weeks without reaching out. Truth is, Michael's popular boy label in high school only came after Daniel graduated, leaving behind a spotlight that Michael stepped into. The day we officially finalized our divorce felt oddly similar to the day we registered our marriage 11 years ago. The weather was neither hot nor cold. Soft, golden sunlight filtered through the trees, and a light breeze carried the faint scent of dry leaves. I walked out of the courthouse, Michael beside me, but I didn't look at him. My eyes were locked on Daniel, standing outside, tall in a deep navy suit, his smile gentle like sunlight in winter. Madison stood at the door in a tight red dress, hair pulled back high, her expression tense. The moment she saw us, she rushed to Michael, clinging to his arm like she was claiming him, right there at the exact place where the cord between him and me had just been cut. But when her eyes landed on me walking toward Daniel, her face darkened, lips pressed tight, clearly bitter that the man beside me wasn't just on Michael's level, but calm, confident, and above it. She blurted out, "Is that Sarah's new boyfriend? Already seeing someone right after the divorce?" I stopped, turned around, and locked my icy gaze on her, taking one step at a time toward her, the sound of my heels like a war drum. "You choosing to be a mistress is your business. Don't assume everyone's like you. Keep your woman in check, Michael. I'm not the type you can toss around." Madison froze, her lips trembling. Michael stood there, fists clenched, like he was about to crush something. I didn't care. I turned and walked toward Daniel's car, got in, and the quiet roar of the engine sounded like a final farewell. In the car, I looked at Daniel and said firmly, "You don't need to hold back for me anymore." "Go all in," he nodded, eyes gleaming. Up until then, the problems with Michael's company had just been minor strikes. I was still busy finalizing the divorce. Now that it was done, I let go. I told my friends, the same people who once helped lift Michael's company to the top, to withdraw all support. Within a month, news of Michael was all over the media, like a wave crashing down, wiping everything out. His company nearly collapsed. The entire sales team quit. Offices stood nearly empty, with only the phones ringing in vain. The newly hired staff fumbled like toddlers learning to walk. It'd take at least a month before they'd adjust, but who knew if the company would last that long? 2 weeks later, after dinner with Rachel, I was driving home when I spotted a figure waiting outside my door. As I got closer, I recognized Michael. Gone was the polished man I once knew. His coat was wrinkled, hair a mess, eyes sunken and tired. He looked up, voice hoarse, trying to grasp at something familiar. "Sarah, you're home." "How have you been?" I frowned, a dull headache creeping in, my fingers tightening around the keys. "What do you want, Michael?" Cut off, he looked lost for a few seconds, his eyes scanning me, as if trying to find the Sarah he used to know. Then he inhaled deeply, voice trembling. "Sarah, the company! Was it you?" I sighed, eyes scanning him with tired indifference, my voice cold. "Yes." "Consider it a gift for your betrayal." I opened the door and stepped inside. But before I could close it, his voice came again, weak, like a confession. "Madison and I broke up. After the company fell apart, she stole a huge sum and ran. I filed a police report." My hand paused on the doorknob, but I didn't turn around. "What's that got to do with me?" I paused, then added, "Michael, that day we ran into each other at the OBGYN clinic. Guess why I was there?" He froze, eyes wide, as if a horrifying truth had just hit him. His mouth moved, but no words came out, only silent regret and pain. I slammed the door shut. Behind me, I heard him shout, desperate, "Sarah, can we really never go back?" I stood behind the door, back against the wall, my breathing heavy. Go back? Did he think I was the type who enjoyed hurting myself? After that, I never saw Michael again. Only through friends did I occasionally hear updates. That he'd reported Madison, tracked her down, and discovered she was a professional con artist with a long list of victims. Michael just one of many, but by far the one who lost the most. His company's game got removed from every platform. Losses piled up beyond measure. His new staff was clueless, unable to close deals, and the company barely hung on in despair. Investors pulled out, the office emptied, and the name Michael Reed, once the rising star of the internet, faded quietly into a distant memory. 3 years after the divorce. Time had softened the wounds, the way a gentle breeze sweeps away fallen leaves, leaving behind a new Sarah Thompson. No longer the girl who once loved Michael Reed with all her heart, but a free woman who could stand tall in the middle of her own storm. News about Michael gradually faded, like ink on an old newspaper blurred by rain. Friends no longer mentioned him. I didn't ask, didn't seek it out. Only occasionally heard someone say his company had gone bankrupt and that Michael Reed now lived quietly somewhere. I didn't feel angry anymore, or hurt. One afternoon, under the golden hue of sunset in the park, Daniel held my hand, his eyes gleaming. He knelt down, not with the serious air of a successful man, but with the playful grin of that high school boy from years ago. "Sarah, will you marry me?" I laughed, tears rolling down, not from pain, but from simple joy. I nodded, fingers woven tightly into his, and in that moment I knew I had found a new shore. A year later, I walked down the aisle, the lights of the small chapel casting a glow on my pure white wedding dress, like stars falling from the sky. With Daniel, I discovered he wasn't just the intelligent, mature man I once admired. He was playful, a bit clingy, insisting every morning on hugging me from behind, whispering, "Make me coffee or I won't go to work." I'd pretend to frown, but inside I felt warm, like morning sunlight filtering through the window. On our wedding day, as I walked down the flower-lined aisle, my eyes glanced over familiar faces. Rachel beaming, my parents wiping tears, friends clapping with joy, and I caught a glimpse of someone in a far corner. A man stood silently, wearing the suit I had bought him before our divorce. It used to fit perfectly, but now hung loose, as if time had drained the life from his body. He held a bouquet of red roses, the same kind he once gave me beneath that sky of LED stars. His eyes were empty, as though reliving a dream that had already shattered. I blinked. My heart twinged, but when I looked again, the corner was empty. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was just a ghost from the past, passing through and disappearing, like mist under the morning sun. I smiled, not as the Sarah I once was, but as someone new, at peace, strong, and ready for the happiness waiting ahead. Freedom isn't about forgetting the past. It's about choosing to move forward, with a light heart and eyes turned toward the light.